Hi YouTube, I'm Tandy. Today we're playing Pioneer again, and we're going to be running Boros Convoke through a league. This list is pretty similar to what I played in the regional championship. I have updated it slightly to reflect some card changes that I've been wanting to make, as well as after learning a bunch on the fly playing the event itself. Talking to very smart people in the room also helped influence some of my deck building decisions, both before the tournament and now after the tournament. This is a deck that's an aggro deck specifically, but one thing I really like about it is how strong it is against the card Fatal Push. Aggro decks in Pioneer tend to be weak to cheap spot removal, and Fatal Push is kind of like the benchmark for that. And if you have an aggro deck that can kind of invalidate or ignore Fatal Push, I think that you got a potential winner on your hands as long as it's fast enough to compete with decks that ignore you. And I think the Boros Convoke deck is more than fast enough to do that. Now, some builds go for Gigantha as like an extra thing to discard to a blood token, or to have like a 5/5 to play super late when like the games go really long. But what that does, it actually turns off your ability to play Burning Tree Emissary. And I found that Burning Tree Emissary allows for some of the most explosive starts you can have, but using Knight-Errant of Eos to find both Burning Tree and Bushwhacker allows you to just have these really powerful turns post Knight-Errant of Eos that make it so that your opponent is going to be dead, even if they have one of those conditional sweepers like Extinction Event or whatever. They're almost always going to leave some amount of creatures around when you've convoked one of your big things. Very few Supreme Verdicts, Depopulates, things like that running around in the format. And so usually when you get hit with a Wrath, you still have a creature or two left over. And it's your job to kind of gauge which of their sweepers are going to be the most potent at any given time and trying to play around them as best you can. We're going to go over the deck before we get started, though. So first and foremost, the deck has 16 free spells. And when I say free spells, I'm talking about actual free spells. Pioneer is not really known for having free spells. While Convoke exists, most of the Convoke cards just see like no play. That is until recently, when this deck really exploded onto the map and showcased the strength of both Knight-Errant of Eos and Venerated Luxodon. I think only having one of those means that you have too few payoffs, but I think even having both of them is still too few payoffs. And I think that the other payoff that you really need in the deck is Reckless Bushwhacker to help out with all the tokens to give them a little more juice. And with Burning Tree Emissary, they're just like a really natural pairing. So that was kind of what I found when I was testing for the event, and in practice, it worked out very well. Now, the one thing that you want to note about Venerated Luxodon is that Venerated Luxodon is going to be one of those cards that lets you explode onto the battlefield, which is going to be great against decks that also explode onto the battlefield, or decks that are trying to match you just like creature for creature and not really killing or sweeping you. You know, other creature-based decks, Venerated Luxodon is going to be really nice. It's also, Venerated Luxodon is great against things like Lotus Field, decks that are ignoring you, because you get to generate a lot of pressure for very little investment, and your opponent has basically no way to clear your board. And those are the types of matchups where Venerated Luxodon is really going to shine. Knight-Errant of Eos, on the other hand, is going to be excellent against decks that do interact with you. Decks with Thoughtseize, decks with Fatal Push. Knight-Errant of Eos lets you push through that cheap interaction, find more spells to continue playing, and provide a nice body on the battlefield that sometimes survives Extinction Event and always survives things like Temporary Lockdown and Deafening Clarion. Those are your two big payoffs for the deck. And then, like we said, we have 4 Reckless Bushwhacker. This combined with Burning Tree Emissary gives you a lot of burst damage, either early with just those two, or late when you already have a bunch of tokens generated. The Reckless Bushwhackers provide you that X factor that once your opponent does sweep your board, as long as you've kind of sandbagged a little bit, like one creature to play to combine with Burning Tree Bushwhacker, sometimes you just kill your opponent the turn after that they cast their sweeper effect, and that's just a really scary thing to have access to in a deck as consistent and powerful as this one. Because we're playing Burning Tree, I don't want to play 2-drops like reinforcements. I want to instead play things that I can play off the Burning Tree mana, so we're leaning 4 copies of Forbidden Friendship, which is secretly one of the best cards in the deck. Because it creates a red and a white creature, you have the ability to use it to convoke one of those 5-drops off of the white human, even if you don't have access to actual white mana. So you can keep more hands that have, you know, Mountain, Castle Embereth, stuff like that, or even double Mountain sometimes, as long as you have, you know, an explosive star with like Burning Tree and Forbidden Friendship. I think that Forbidden Friendship gets cut way too much, but if you're playing a bunch of other token generators, it makes sense. You don't want to overload on them. But in the Burning Tree builds, I've been very happy with Friendship. Also, the red creature having haste sometimes matters when you're trying to punch through the last few points of damage. Post Sweeper, it came up multiple times at the RC. It came up multiple times in testing. Um, the other free spell in the deck is Ornithopter. Now, Ornithopter, normally a card that I don't really endorse because it leads to gameplay that often leaves you vulnerable to those cheap interactive pieces like Thoughtseize and Fatal Push. But in this build, we're actually so insulated from both of them due to redundancy and cheapness that Ornithopter is the perfect card for the deck. It can turn on Burning Tree Emissary. It acts like a Mox Opal sometimes for casting your Convoke creatures. Sorry, it turns on Reckless Bushwhacker. But the main thing is that it's your 12th artifact for Gleeful Demolition. Gleeful Demolition is the most powerful card in the deck because it's the one that lets you go fast. Now, Gleeful Demolition on a turn 1 Ornithopter is fine, but the real money for Gleeful Demolition usually comes from killing an artifact that one of your 1-drops created. For example, Voldaren Epicure and Thraben Inspector make an artifact when you play them. That means on turn 2, you can play a Gleeful Demolition to make 3 more creatures, and then you can use those 4 creatures and 1 land, or a 5th creature cast from hand to play Venerated Luxon or Knight-Errant of Eos. And that allows for just some really disgusting starts that very few decks can interact with in a positive way, and very few can overcome. The rest of the deck is kind of filled out with some cheap 1-mana threats that have some versatility. In the previous version, I played Legion's Landing, but I now think that is inferior to Giant Killer. I think having a couple pieces of chop down that you can find off a Knight-Errant's good. And I only flipped Legion's Landing like twice in the whole tournament, and I think I made a token with it 1 time, and the mana was only relevant 1 other time. And I think Giant Killer's tap ability is going to be decent, and the chop down is going to be great against like Shieldred and Atraxa and things of that nature. The other 1-drop we're playing is kind of a throwaway. It's Yoshin Frontliner. I'll speak about why we're playing this in more in detail in a moment. But suffice it to say, it's a 1-drop that can be cast off of a mountain. It can be cast off Burning Tree's green mana. It's an artifact for Gleeful Demolition, and it has a little bit of extra value with the Unearth. And against decks that don't put a lot of creatures on the table, it's a little bit of extra damage. And against decks that do put a bunch of creatures on the table, you can sometimes make your 4/4s into 5/5s, and this stuff like Shieldred or Polukranos has trouble blocking. That has come up quite a bit. Yoshin Frontliner also is in this build because we are playing Castle Imbrith. Now, let me explain what does Castle Imbrith have to do with playing Yoshin Frontliner? Well, Castle Imbrith wants you to play mountains, right? And if you're playing basic mountains, a lot of basic mountains, we're playing 4 out of our 20 lands are basic mountains. Because of that, it actually ends up with not enough white sources on turn 1 all the time, and you need to have some way to use your turn 1 mana consistently. And Yoshin's Frontliner can be a red 1-drop, it can be a different artifact creature, it can be Dryad, Militant, and you can do some other stuff with it if you want to. I found the Yoshin Frontliner was the best because of the Gleeful Demolition plus Unearth sequences. 1 Yoshin Frontliner can fuel 2 Gleeful Demolition. That came up multiple times at the event, which I was really happy about. And then and the Castle Imbrith just is the land, in my opinion, that is the best for this slot. It provides you with an extra 2 mana sources by playing 20 lands instead of the more traditional like 18 or 19. And on top of that, when you flood out slightly, you just have this big burst of damage for all your token generators. Castle Imbrith more than paid for itself at the event. Very happy with that. The sideboard, this is going to get a little bit deep. I don't want to go too deep, but we'll talk a little bit about some of the matchups and why. 2 copies of Declaration in Stone. This is going to be nice for mirror matches for taking care of Gleeful Demolition tokens. It's also great against mono green, knocks off Old Growth Troll, Polukranos, Cavalier of Thorns, all for just 2 mana. And if they ever multiple, which they do a bunch, you can snag 2 of them and just kill them on the spot. 1 Chain of the Rocks, since we have 8 mountains in our deck, I think 1 Chain of the Rocks is fine. And combined with the 2 copies of Declaration Stone, I think it gives you just enough cheap interaction for large creatures. Combined with Giant Killer and Collective Effort, which we'll get to in a minute, I think we just have plenty. 4 copies of Rending Volley. This is mostly for Greasefang, but it's excellent against blue-white spirits. It's good against mono-white aggro. I don't really like it in the mirror because I don't think killing the 5-drops is really what you want to be doing. You just want to overwhelm your opponent by flooding the board, or having some X Factor thing like Goblin Chainwhirler or In the Festivities. Showdown of the Scalds. This is going to be our anti-Rakdos card. You can play Experimental Frenzy. I don't recommend Wedding Announcement. I think Wedding Announcement is just too much of the same type of thing. And a bunch of the hate cards that already are good against you, Showdown is better against those than Wedding Announcement. 2 copies of Tormod's Crypt. This is almost entirely for Greasefang. It's kind of a 1-2 punch with Running Volley. And I found it necessary to have a winning record against them. Whenever I have just Running Volley, sometimes I lose to a Thoughtseize. When I have Running Volley and Tormod's Crypt, I have yet to lose. Every time I have these 6 cards in my deck, I've always beaten Greasefang. I've beaten it 4 or 5 times. And it's almost always because I have Tormod's Crypt in some spots and Running Volley in other spots, combined with Heavy Pressure. Thalia Garden of Thraben. This is a really nice standalone card, and in some matchups, you just need that extra piece of disruption. Obviously, it makes Forbidden Friendship and Gleeful Demolition a little harder to cast, and so when you board in Thalia, you might want to trim a Forbidden Friendship or a Gleeful Demolition to compensate. However, you can always play around your own stuff, and you don't necessarily need to play Thalia on turn 2. And then lastly, the collective efforts. This was a later edition before the regional championship, and one that I never got to test before the regional championship. After talking to 2 people and seeing it in action one time, I was sold. I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Against Rakdos, it kills Fable, it kills Shoulderhead, and pumps your team. That's an unbelievable beating. And if you watch me play at the regional championship in round 2, I was on camera. I got to do almost exactly that, except it was against Is It Creativity playing Atraxa, and I got to blow up a Fable, blow up an Atraxa, and pump like 7 creatures and kill them. So collective effort, I think, more than pays for itself. It's a little awkward, the double white sometimes with 4 mountains and 2 castle and breath. But when you draw it and it's good, it's unbelievable. And there's very few cards that can match this on power level for a deck like this. This is Boros Convoke. We'll call it 2.0. We're going to run through a league and see how it goes. I'm just going to put back Ornithopter, and we'll go Double Burn Tree Bushwhacker on 2. And then if they put some defense on the board, we'll Lux it on 3. What's your worst matchup? It felt like in the event my worst matchup was Neoform, but I'm not sure that that's entirely true. It just felt pretty tough to win. This is why I like the Bushwhacker version, man. You just have so many draws that are like this and just put so much pressure on your opponent with immediacy. Whereas if I was playing the other build, I'm just like, okay, Resolute Reinforcements, your go. You know? Just like a different universe. And now we just have them on a clock. I'm just gonna make them have the verdict next turn. If we play Knight-Errant, it runs into Absorb. I don't really know what they have, but this is just under them if they don't have verdict, so. Alright, so blue-white, we'll go Thalia's Showdown. We'll trim Giant Killers. We'll keep the Yoshins, they're great. Maybe trim Venerated ×2. We'll keep this hand. We need to get a land in the first couple draws, but doable. Chat, while you're here, make sure to check out our sponsors. Dynamo Collectibles is been a sponsor of the channel for about a year now, and he runs like a really sweet video game store. If you're into retro video games, highly recommend. Callie recently bought me a copy of Majora's Mask for my birthday, and I haven't played yet, but I'm very excited to when I have a free weekend. Right now, we're like super deep on Tears of the Kingdom. Also, make sure to check out our other sponsor, Brainstorm Brewery. The podcast is a nice slice of life podcast for all things magic related. They do all sorts of stuff. Really cool folks. All right, we're gonna go Bushwhacker here and just get run into. We'll just get hit by whatever. I don't really know what they're playing. I guess fires of something or another. This feels like a Prismari command, so I guess they're. I guess this means they're what you calls it. Bring to light. That's what it is. Bindings, whatever. They'll take 7 down to 10. If we draw land next turn, we can go like Epicure Bushwhacker, put them really low, even through a removal spell. If they do like a sweeper or something, we can rebuild with Epicure Thraben. Oh, for sure, Rockets. But again, this is like we played it in an open deckless tournament where the range of keeps are way more focused because you just know exactly what you're playing against. All right, well that's a bummer. All right, I'm gonna go Thraben Epicure, and then next time we'll go Bushwhacker Burning Tree. I think if I go the other way, I potentially lose some damage. Whereas this is threatening lethal next turn exactly if they just don't do anything. They also just don't have a companion, which is strange to me. You almost always see fires with a companion for good reason. The fires trick of like buy thing plus fires is so strong. All right, lockdown number 2 is rough. Did they buy this earlier and I just didn't see? I didn't see them buy it. Yeah, they played Binding on 3. So they just are playing Karuga? Very strange. Just gonna play this to make the Knight-Errant cheaper next turn. I'm not gonna attack. Reg Error? I don't know. Not sure. They have 5 cards in hand though. I don't think I can possibly win. We'll be heavily advantaged on the play though. They just have to have lockdown on 3 or they're dead. If I have like any sort of reasonable draw. And sometimes I can okay, you win. All right, so now we know a little bit more what they're playing. Maybe the giant killers aren't so bad because they can kill the big boy. But I don't really think that that's what the matchup is about. I don't even know that I want showdown anymore. It's just all about like combo killing them as quickly as possible. The collective effort's killing enchantment sick. I will keep. We can go turn 2 Burning Tree Friendship, turn 3 Knights before they can hit us with a lockdown. Naya Blitz together one weekend when the Pro Tour was going on. It was like the one Pro Tour Brad missed in like a 10-year span, and he missed because of like the way the Pro system updated. It just like screwed him or whatever. Razor Verge thinking over Mana Confluence. I mean, you lack turn 1 red sources. I'd rather just play Mana Confluence. You don't really lose by your opponent attacking you with things very much. You have so many blockers that just isn't the case very often. Savai. All right, just the Epicure. I think I'll just say go. Next time we go Epicure Demolition Knight if they have a lockdown. All right, so there's Clarion. So now we can Knight-Errant again. Now the question is, do I want to Convoke for 5 or 4? I think for 5. I want to be able to hit like another Knight or a Luxon, I think. Plus I can maybe hold up a 2-drop. It's like hard for them to get Knights off the table, I think. Yeah. So we'll keep, I guess, Bushwhacker for sure, and then Thraben. We'll just chill. Next time we go Thraben Bushwhacker or Collective Effort Thraben. I could Bushwhacker attack for 7, but it's just so much more damage next turn if they don't have a second sweeper. Sorry, I missed the invite. It happens. It was a clean cut. Everyone who was X3-1 made it, and everyone who's X4 didn't. How's the judge familiar list? We OT'd pretty quick, and it didn't feel particularly good, thanks to losing out on Burning Trees, so. All right, lockdown essentially only stopping this is pretty solid for us. I'll probably still collective effort here. Maybe not. All right, put them to 4, and now they have to have another big sweeper or like something that gains a bunch of life. But if it's a creature, we can collective effort it. I kind of wanted to kill the fires, but I couldn't convoke the collective effort at all or escalate it or whatever. I thought it was better to just deal max damage here. Oh, thanks, Icy. It was a great tournament. It was a lot of fun. I got to hang out with a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a long time, and I got to meet some people that I've only really interacted with through the internet. It was actually my first time meeting Spike in person, and we got dinner twice and had just like a wonderful time, you know. Backside is what, 4-6, do nothing. Okay, they're dead. They're cycling Savai to try to hit another play. They find the 5th land, but maybe they also found a thing to do with it. They're dead on board. This doesn't really do anything. But I even have the answer with collective effort to kill it. Alright, so let's go cast to destroy target creature, power 4 greater. And the fires keeps them from being able to cast anything here, which is nice. Definitely a good keeper. Epicure. Dark Slick. Is that pretty good, huh? It's gonna attack. I'm not gonna bother with the Knight-Errant, I don't think. It's just so much damage to get in. And they just have nothing on board. That's another thing about Forbidden Friendship that I really liked over the regular reinforcements. Like, obviously, you. Let's see. This is the smallest. Obviously, you lose out on like some equity with Knight-Errant, but the haste is good, and being able to cast off Burning Tree is better. Radiant Flames, huh? Who the fuck plays main deck Radiant Flames? Who are these people, man? This is just like not a real deck. I guess this is the fucking. This is probably the stupid deck that y'all were talking about earlier, huh? Probably should have popped the blood. All right, Ornithopter one time. What do you think of Throne as the one I've seen floating around? Not a fan. I've talked about it a couple times already on the Discord and on stream. We played it once. It felt like it did the thing it was supposed to do, but there's just spots where like it's just a creature. Oh wow, we beat the main deck Radiant Flames. Sorry, it's just like it's better as a creature because if you draw that, you just need the ability to convoke or whatever. All right, so there, I guess the transmog deck. So we'll bring in ways to fuck them up. We'll get collective effort, Thalia, deck, chain, and we'll trim on Yoshin, friendship, a bushwhacker, 2 venerated, and like 1 ornithopter. Yeah, that was what I found. You just want more bodies. Actually, I'm gonna trim one more bushwhacker and just add in another forbidden. They're gonna be like sweeping us and stuff, and I need to be able to rebuild with like 1 card sometimes, and forbidden friendship helps do that. If we just obviously if we draw 1 land, we're in business. If we draw 2 lands, I think it's hard to lose. And we have a couple 1-drops to get going. All right, Thoughtseize. My guess they'll take Thalia. Thalia seems very bad for them here, but the Gleeful Demolition is also potentially scary for them. All right, they took Gleeful. We'll just play Thalia and kind of disrupt them a bit. It'll die at some point, so we don't really have to worry about it hurting our own collective efforts too much. If we naturally draw land, we go Epicure Bush. If we don't, I might just draw a card off the clue. I'm not sure. They can't play Fable. They can kill this. We're going to attack for sure. All right, well, let's go for Epicure plus Bush. Put them to 12. Collective efforts here are looking not the best, but they will be nice against things like Fable. Ornithopter. Burning Tree. Ah, crap. Not quite. Unfortunately, we can't do Burning Tree Collective here. I'm gonna attack. All right, so now they get to loot 2. If they draw the land, they can go land plus transmog for Traxa, and then we'll go kill Traxa, give them my things 1/1, and maybe kill the Fable as well. And if we draw a 1-drop, we can do that a little more easily, or 0-drop, or even another Burning Tree, because we will have a free mana floating. All right, I'm gonna block, I think, just to keep them off of. Okay. All right, never mind. No blocks. All right, so we'll go destroy enchantment, counter on all my stuff. We'll go blow on this. Tap the giant killer. Hit him for 5. Still have the collective effort to clean up a shield red, or not shield red, a Traxa if it should come down. This does turn on Fatal Push for the Bushwhacker if they have it, but they already had that with Treasure if they wanted. All right, they go into 4. Let's see what they got. We might get Wrathed. All right, Giant Killer down. Very interesting. So now they're going to attack. They're going to transmog with Atraxa with 2 up. And then if they have an answer for effort, we're probably going to lose. But we do have the answer for the Atraxa if they don't have it, so we'll see. Cards revealed. A Make Disappear. If we draw a land, we can play around the Make Disappear. Chain Rock's also an out. Alright, so we'll just do Destroy Target Creature Power 4 or greater. We can pay resources. I'm going to keep. The 4th land is not great. Like, this is basically already Mold of 6, and this is a pretty good Mold of 6, I think. We have enough mana to actually leverage the Thraben Inspector, which is cool. We're going to start off with Frontliner. That way we can go Forbidden Friendship. Plus get an extra point in. I did last week was mainline Diablo. I played for about 3 hours on Thursday before we left. It was fun. I'll probably end up playing a bunch with my buddies. I mean, they probably are level 37 or 50 or 100 or whatever. I don't know. I did watch Woody get first to level 100 yesterday. That was cool. This card literally just bricks my whole fucking deck, man. Stick up. Maybe I should just play these out. This card's so good. Wonder why no one plays this shit. The strict proctors themselves are a little wonky when you play stuff like Supreme Verdict, and you can't play Temporary Lockdown, obviously. I draw a land, I guess I can pay. Well, I played it through a couple leagues a couple months back, and it didn't feel great. The one like 2 mana 1/3s traditionally pretty difficult for my deck to deal with, apparently. Especially when they do something like pretty sickening. Like here the ETB thing just screws me. I just feel so like, and this is another situation where if I just knew the matchup, I would have played one of these on one instead of the thing, right? So it's just such a weird way to test. All right, let's just smash. We'll lose 2, they take 6, and then we'll just play 2 more things and just churn, I guess. Fuck. No malarkey. Do they turn off mutate as well? Tweak to green? I mean, you shut off a lot of their ETBs. Okay, they're attacking. That can't be good. I guess that just means we're getting time walked. This is one matchup where I wish I had Gobakon. This is like a really good Gobakon matchup. Although these kind of fuck Gobakon too, man. Deshaun, thanks for the follow. Is Frontlander better than Butmac Courier? I think so. You just can't clear blockers without playing removal, and Butmac Courier sucks when your opponent has a lot of blockers. It's way better when your deck has like 6 shocks and some 2 mana removal. We're just getting 2'd out of the game, huh? Okay. Well, maybe they're out of. I guess they have Deluge, so they're never gonna run out of juice. Also flooding out. Not much we can do. Do they not have the ability to deluge? I feel like they did. Oh, okay, okay. That makes more sense. I feel like Showdown's pretty good though. I feel like Venerated Luxon is just overkill. We can just beat them with a bunch of 1/1s. It's probably too many running volleys. I like the Bushwhackers. Maybe Friendship can go. We'll keep this one. Put back the probably Battlefield Forge. Keep the mountain in case we draw a castle. Castle is really strong in the deck. I was very impressed by Castle over the weekend. There were just a lot of situations where I would just like need if I drew the fourth land, they were dead, you know? And so it made it so like a spell was good and a land was good. Here, because we have two red sources, we need to lead with Thraben, and then we can either double Epicure or Friendship next turn. Probably Friendship. But maybe I should go ahead and double Epicure to play around the Proctor. Or Tell, sure, sure. There she is. So we don't get Wrath. 3-mana Wrath is game. Land is game if they don't 3-mana Wrath this. But they have the Proctor, so I just assume they don't have Lockdown, but I guess they have Doomscar. Very fun. Little 4 damage thing. Now our Reckless Bushwhacker with Castle could do something. 3-mana Wrath, man. That's so brutal. I'm actually surprised Doomscar didn't see more play. When I saw that card first printed, I thought it was excellent. Okay. This is another 4-lander, but this one actually has a castle in it, so it's not a bad 4-lander. Plus, we have turn 1 Gleeful. If they go like Black Source Go, we probably won't. We'll probably just play this tap and just try to wait for them to tap out before we go Gleeful. All right, Sacred Foundry, so maybe the mirror match. Yeah. I don't think our hand is very good for the mirror. We're going to need a little help. If we draw one of our Convoke creatures, though, we're going to be in business because we can go Ornithopter and then play the Convoke creature. We can't really play the Burning Tree next turn with a Convoke creature, though. But we also can draw Bushwhacker, so we have like 12 draws that are great. Plus, if we get to later in the game, we could get the castle going. Oh, we're not really doing that, Viper. It's more just like about branding. Like I know that like we might do something like that at some point, but tomorrow is just about playing Jeskai Black really against everyone's most hated deck, Practice Mid. I did get top 64 Howl, so it was overall reasonable, successful weekend. All right, so castle taps. I'm not gonna get the Ornithopter down. Next turn we'll go for the castle activation. So Burning Tree lets them play a Convoke creature and another 1-drop if they have it. Wonder if they're on my list from the RC. All right, so Venerated is annoying. Maybe I should have played the Giant Killer. Maybe I should have held up for Chop Down. I want to be able to activate Castle, and we kind of had to play a tap, though. I think tapping Venerated and attacking with everything is kind of bad. This is actually how my matchup against Julian John kind of went in the mirror, where he was just first to Venerated or whatever, and it's just so hard to come back when you're second to Venerate, or if you don't Venerate at all. Venerated is just so powerful in the mirror. Oh, nice. Good job, Powell. What were you playing? I know you probably told me, but I forgot. Play Blue Spirits. Nice. Christian, thanks for 13 months. All right. My opponent is playing outstandingly slow. I'm just going to leave. Bring in the Deck and Stones. They're great against the tokens. We'll bring in the Collective Efforts. They're good in small doses. Cut Frontliner. It's like hard to attack. Cut a Bushwhacker. Cut a Friendship. Maybe cut 2 Bushwhacker. Might hold the Burning Tree this time instead of just playing it on 2 for no value. I guess we can maybe pop the Clue off of Thraben. That seems pretty fun. Chat, what do you do when your opponent just doesn't do anything? Takes forever, you know? Answer is not much. We're gonna go in Ornithopter so that we can Collective Effort next turn. If they, because they can play a 4-drop off of their own Gleeful. I'm gonna play this next turn no matter what to pump everything, and I can wait to play this, but if I don't have a target for either of the other modes to escalate, then I want to be able to attack for an extra damage. Legion's Landing. I think I'm going to blow up the Legion's Landing and tap the Ornithopter to keep them off of a land. All right, destroy enchantment, 1 counter at everything. It's a huge attack. 11, put them to 7. They can still do a thing next turn. They played a, I guess they played a tapped Sacred Foundry. If it was untapped, I guess they couldn't play a 5-drop. Maybe I should have waited 1 turn on the effort, but I just really wanted to smash. Plus, if they convoke, all their shields are down basically. So all right, if we tackle everything, 4/4 eats this. This chumps here. This trade, they take 2, 4, 5 down to 2, gain 1 up to 3. So maybe we just go Knight full blown ski since we can't do much killing this turn. Yeah, and then we'll go maybe another Knight-Errant and a Bushwhacker. Then we can play another Knight-Errant this turn. Missed. Bummer. All right. Any spell next turn essentially lets us kill. Maybe I should have took Venerated. But I just wasn't going to be able to juice it that well that turn, you know? So Moppy. So they're not playing my list. That's fine. Just pointing it out. All right, let's just go Ornithopter, make 3 things. Next turn, if we draw another artifact generator, I guess it has to cost 0. Why this version over the Clarion Spirit version? I mean, I wrote about it last week a little bit on my Patreon Moppy. Mostly the Burning Tree Bushwhacker stuff's great, and you can't play a bunch of 2-drop white creatures with Burning Tree. And I just feel like Burning Tree is just it just gives you like 16 free spells essentially, and I think the free spells are the best part of the Convoke deck. And basically, no other decks in the format have those free spells. So okay, so we can't block. So maybe we have to go for Burning Trees just for blocking purposes. Yike. Let's play the venerated. We draw an artifact generator, we might be able to get it off next turn. If they make some tokens, we can maybe deck and stone. I don't know. It's pretty bad. Twitch is rolling out some guidelines that are going to kill my sponsorships. Yeah. Like, it's honestly, it's disgustingly bad what they're doing. Yeah, I think that they might just be fucking themselves, but... Alright, so we can go 2 burning trees, block, block, go to 1. They have a haste creature, we're dead. I'll be on the play for round number 5. Keep this one. We got the turn 2 Knight-Errant rolled up. Hopefully they don't thought seize me. Oh, thanks, Moppy. All right, no thought seize. That means our Knight-Errant safe. Humano. Humano. Makes no sense. It makes perfect sense. They're greedy as shit. This is a sick-ass turn, though. So I'm going to Knight-Errant first. Cancel. Actually, no. We're going to attack a little bit. We'll just use all of our summoning sick creatures to do this so we can attack for 3. And then we'll get the full Monty. We'll go for Killer Bushwhacker. Smash for 3. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna probably reach out to YouTube today whenever I'm done with stream. Those guidelines are extremely hard to enforce and also complete bullshit. And so they're just gonna be enforced randomly, which is just like bad for, you know, my stream. We'll play Giant Killer and Thraben Inspector both. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, they might like roll it back or whatever, but the fact that they're even wanting to do it just means that they are just trying to be greedy. So it's just better to just figure out a better long-term thing. I've already been thinking about streaming on YouTube anyway, and I think it'll be worse for viewership, but it'll be much better for me monetarily and much cleaner because all my videos just stay on one program. It's sad too. I've been like a partner for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, and I don't know. They clearly just don't give a shit. So who cares? I don't have to give a shit either. All right. So mono red, I guess a Tarka red more. I don't know if I want the Deck and Stones and Chain to the Rocks. I definitely want the Thalias. They have a lot of things that Thalia just screws. I don't think Giant Killer or Yoshin's Frontliner are going to be too strong. So maybe we just board in these 5. We can maybe shrink a Knight-Errant. Or maybe actually let's shrink a Bushwhacker. Bushwhacker is traditionally weak when you're both creature decks. That sounds pretty good. I think I'm going to play the Ornithopter in case they do something that kills the Epicure and they play a 1/1 with haste, something like that. Like I won't block with it necessarily, but I want to be able to block with it if it's a clean block against a 1/1. I also might just go Ornithopter block Swiss Sphere. I guess that means that shot kills both, so probably not. All right, play with fire on the Ornithopter is fine. Let's see if they play one on the Epic here as well. Start spending these points. Oh yeah. So, but I don't get hit with a goblin, whatever, mabob. Chain whirler. Chain whirler would be sickening. Although, if we get to go friendship venerated next turn, it's going to be so gross in a good way. I couldn't really. This is the spots where the Thalia is worse after sideboard, right? Because when we have friendship, but again, we can just sequence our own things, and Thalia is really good sometimes. Oh, that's brutal. I guess I could have seen that coming, huh? All right, one card in hand left. All right, let's friendship again. We're at 12 still, so we're not that bad shape. We'll attack. Next turn we can go Demo, Thalia, Venerated, and still have 2 blockers. All right, we'll take 4. Salmon's kind of cool. I haven't seen people play it yet. I could have blocked, I guess, but that kind of ruins my turn. Burning Tree Bushwhacker's pretty scary. We're not dead, though. We go to 6, or we go to 2, take 6. Or go to 1. And then they're dead. If they attack out, yeah, we just take 6 and go to 2 and then kill them. And if they don't attack, that's also good, because then we're just maybe going to overwhelm them with our attack. The Swiss Spears don't trade as well. I think. Oh, they're just dead with cast Bushwhacker. I missed lethal. That's my fault. I just didn't see that they were dead. Okay, so if we Bushwhacker, we attack with a bunch. They block here. They take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I missed lethal. That's my fault. If I just if I lose, then just know that the match was won. If I just count, it's playing too fast. So we are definitely not dead to the den. So this is a very easy block. Not dead. They're dead. Easy. Okay. So this build, the Giant Killers are taking the place of the Legion's Landing. I think that's solid. Our 2 losses, we lost once to the Mirror. I think that's kind of just up in the air, coin flipping. We lost to Mono Black, I think. Maybe that was last league. I forgot what our other loss was to. But long story short, I think that this build's great. I like the Burning Tree Bushwhacker plan. The deck's really fluid. I like the Rakdos matchup quite a bit. And I like this build. This is essentially what I played in the regional championship, to a 10-4 finish against some of the best players in the United States. Deck felt great here. As far as just fluidity is concerned, I think some matchups or some specific types of opponents, there's just not really a whole lot you can do about in Pioneer. And we kind of ran into, the turn 3 Doomscar in the draw, just killed us in that one match, and then the mirror match was just kind of a crapshoot. So what are you gonna do? This is the Boros Bushwhacker Beatdown, Boros Convoke. One of my favorite decks in Pioneer right now. Maybe you should give it a shot, yeah? You talk about cutting Invasion of Gobakon? Yeah, I would love to talk about cutting Invasion of Gobakon. Okay, so let's pull it up so we can have it on screen while we're talking about it. All right, so Invasion of Gobakon, 2 mana. When it enters the battlefield, look at the target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. A spell cast this way costs 2 more to cast. Once you attack it for 3 damage, it flips into Light Shield Array, which is a nice little protective thing that adds some counters to your stuff. And you can sack it to give your stuff hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So I tried so hard to convince Doomwake to cut this card, and I was unsuccessful. His experience with it was significantly different than mine, but I think that it's because the builds we were playing were different, and the theory behind the cards we were playing was different. Now, Invasion of Gobakon is one of those cards that in a deck that is a generic aggro deck, like Spirits, like a Bant Company deck or Mono White Humans, I think it's going to shine in those spots. It's going to be extremely good in those decks and those sideboards, taking combo cards out of your opponent's hand, protecting your stuff from those Supreme Verdicts and things of that nature. However, in this deck, our creatures are also mana sources. Our early drops are ramping out Knight-Errant and Venerated Luxodon. We keep a lot of one-land hands that focus on convoking. And because of that, when we actually do hit our second land with Gobakon, it's rare that we actually want to cast Gobakon. We usually want to start by casting Burning Tree Emissary into one of our other things, like Bushwhacker or whatever. Or we want to just be starting the Convoke chains with Venerated Luxodon and Knight-Errant. Now, if you ever go like turn 1 Ornithopter Gleeful, turn 2 Invasion, attack, flip it, yeah, that's fucking crazy. But that's just like not something that happens very often, especially against matchups where Invasion is good, right? And so on top of that, a lot of the sweepers that I was fighting against when I was testing were things like Temporary Lockdown and Farewell, which just get around the hexproof and indestructible clauses, and it makes it so that the backside is just kind of dog shit. And that was basically my understanding of the card. I use my creatures too much to convoke early. When I am starting to attack, it's usually for like 8 to 16 damage, right? With the bursts of stuff. And I never want to send like 3 at invasion and 10 at face, because normally your opponent just has like 1 removal spell that knocks your creature off that's attacking the invasion. And so you have to just essentially choose at some point, do I attack invasion with everything, or do I attack face with everything? And I found that I was just like winning more by just ignoring the invasion and just going face. And it did not take long for me to understand that this deck isn't like a normal aggro deck. This is more like a combo aggro deck. You don't attack in some spots when you have 6+ damage, because you need to convoke a Knight-Errant or a Venerated Luxodon to essentially increase your board position and to reduce the number of cards your opponent can play that get them back into the game. And that's why I'm not playing Invasion of Gobakon. If you're playing 2 or 3 Invasion of Gobakon in your sideboard, it's going to be fine. You're going to cast it. It's going to be okay. But I built this deck with in-out plans in mind for basically every matchup, and was able to essentially stick to those plans and win the majority of my matchups. Now, I also noticed that like Creativity, Neoform, these are decks that are just very hard to beat, even with Invasion of Gobakon. And so it was behoove you, I think, to sometimes ignore your bad matchups and just have cards in your sideboard that improve close matchups. And we saw that there's actually like a nice data matrix that a website put out about each archetype's win percentages against some other decks. And some decks in Pioneer are so consistent, like Lotus Field, for example, that they have a 100% matchup against Enigmatic Incarnation. And if that isn't Pioneer in a nutshell, I don't know what is. And so while there's no matchups, I think, that are as polarized as that, I do think that that you can choose which matchups you care about and which you try to dodge. And if you don't dodge them, sometimes you can still win. I beat Creativity in round 2 and at the RC, but it was very difficult. And yes, Invasion of Gobakon would have been good in that matchup. But every time I play Invasion of Gobakon, that takes away my Greasefang cards, or that takes away other things. And so that's just like my logic behind it. It's all. Thanks for watching. I'm Tandy, and I'll see you next time.